Vikings file their teeth? Okay, so not all Vikings filed their teeth, but there is this phenomenon where you see sort of horizontal, usually lines, sometimes little half moons, always male in the Viking Age. And I mean, it's not a huge number, maybe sort of, I don't know, over 100, maybe 130 odd bodies have been found where they do have these filed teeth. No one knows why they filed them. It's not like it's one particular sort of social group, one particular sort of time period.
Why do you guys think they filed their teeth?
There does seem to be an association with the island of Gotland, so sort of off the coast of Sweden in the Baltic Sea. It's not like everyone who had filed teeth came from Gotland, but you see most of the burials of people with filed teeth there. So there's definitely an association.
Could be cultural then. Yeah, like a regional cultural characteristic. You know how you have kilts in Scotland? That's a regional characteristic of a cultural dynamic. Maybe something like that.
But you also find, I don't know, there's a couple in Denmark. There's one in a mass grave from Ridgeway Hill in England.
Okay.
So no one knows.
No one knows.
Yeah, it's a good one. What did Vikings eat? Right. So part of it depends on where in the Viking world you're talking about. So for example, if you're in North Greenland, for example, there's a lot more seals being eaten, particularly later on when it gets cold.
Man, this seal looks like he really is enjoying life, isn't he? He doesn't give a flying... Look at him. Sure, he's got the fat to deal with the cold. He doesn't even feel it.
And there's reindeer being eaten, but obviously if you're in, say, Iceland, no reindeer. There's enough seals. On the Faroes, they seem to be particularly keen on pigs. So you have tons of place names linked to pigs, which suggests that they were keeping them.
Bacon. The Norse were into bacon, guys. I can see that.
But yeah, it depends on location. Fish, weirdly enough, so for example in North Greenland, there's not that much evidence that they were eating fish, but in other sites, absolutely they are eating a lot of fish, particularly if they're obviously living near the coast. So you've got to think, there's a mixture of sort of, they'll be hunting wild game, and again, that depends on where they are. Again, North Greenland, they try to grow sort of cereals early on, but it's really too cold. So
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the farming aspect of it, it's probably the igniter for the raids. Although then again, it depends. In the Nordic countries, I read that there are some areas that are farmable. But in comparison to, imagine, Italy, southern France, I mean, the difference is massive. So no, I can see that 100%. Also, when it comes to the idea that they didn't find much evidence of fish in the diet of people in Greenland, of course, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. We don't know if it's just that it just so happened that we didn't, maybe they did it. Because I wouldn't see why. Why not? Just fish and get the food. So maybe it's just, I mean, we don't know. I wouldn't take it as a definitive statement. That's all I'm saying.
Most North Greenlanders really wouldn't have seen bread most of the time, or porridge. So you've got to think about the area. You've got to think about the time period. But yeah, and in terms of what they would have drunk, probably sort of, beer and occasionally wine, but beer and mead and milk, that sort of stuff.
Love it.
Cows were a big deal. So what were Viking houses like? They varied. So you've got prosperous chieftains. You've got these like bigger farmhouses, that sort of stereotypical Viking idea with the sort of fire in the middle, bench on the side.
Man, I love this. Oh, wouldn't you want? This is Valheim 101, by the way. That's exactly what I do every time I play Valheim. Fire in the middle. Given, I usually put some wood on the floor, but that's just me. And then you got the round shields, yeah, totally. And these are actually pretty nice. An axe, why not? An iron axe, yeah, we like that. Bearded axe, just in case, you got someone knocking on your door and you just want to show them who's boss. And then, I love this. This is great.
Rooms off to one end and another to like keep the animals, or where you can go to sleep, or where you can store food. But then sort of if you're up in the Arctic, it's much more almost like hobbit holes. If you go to North Greenland,
really,
they have to have really thick walls. These are really cold winters. So yeah, and over time, again, it changes. So you start to see sort of more smaller buildings for specific functions, kind of being siphoned off from the main hall. But again, sort of, I don't know, southern Denmark, you've got something that's more like a like little village system almost. You know, if you're up in Iceland, it's more isolated farmsteads connected.
See, when she's allowed to actually speak and express herself because she's dealing with a topic that isn't controversial at all and she doesn't have to be worried, the explanation is fantastic. I wish we could do that in academia with everything. That is my wish, because this is great. And by the way, wouldn't you spend a night in that? What time are we? So 7:27, so I don't forget, but I need to look at that again. I'm sorry. I need to look at that again.
Fine.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you want to spend like a week in a place like this? Maybe in summer, because I'm a Mediterranean man and I don't want to die. So maybe in summer. And then I'll leave the cold winter to the badass Nordic people among you. With that being said, man, I would love this. I'm going to play some Valheim tomorrow, guys. Whether you're there or not, it's up to you. I'm playing some Valheim.
It's more isolated farmsteads connected.
Cozy.
Part of that's to do with just how fertile the land is, how much land you need. So it's really variable. Okay, did the Vikings only bathe on Saturdays? Well, okay, so this is a really cool one. The Old Norse word for Saturday is laugardagur, which means sort of bath day or washing day. So there's definitely that association with frequent bathing, but Saturday bathing as well. When you get into Iceland, of course, you have those lovely natural hot springs. And so I'm not sure whether it would have just been on Saturdays, but you know, for example, when the country converts to Christianity in around the year 1000, where they convert, there aren't any hot springs. And so everyone says, well, no, we're not being baptized till we're on our way home because we know where the good hot springs are. Thank you very much. So there's definitely, this idea of Vikings.
Baptizing in a hot spring, the Norse can rock it. Like the Norse are rock and roll. Absolutely.
Being sort of dirty and matted is absolutely not true. And Saturday was the day.
Saturday.
Did the Vikings have slaves?
Go.
Yes. And they often were slaves, yes. So the sort of enslaved population of Scandinavia, it's crazy. It's been estimated around the year 1000. It may have been 20 to 30% of the population. And we're not just talking about enslaved people that have been taken on raids, although certainly that's true.
Yeah, you could buy them.
A big proportion of, for example, the early Icelandic population that are enslaved peoples who've been brought from the British Isles and Ireland.
I was going to say Irish, for sure.
So that's definitely the case. But there's all sorts of other ways you could have ended.
Hey, look at that. They enslaved the queen, the queen of chess. What's up with that? What's up with that? They enslaved the queen of Gambit. Come on now.
Ended up essentially enslaved. So if you were in debt, for example, or you might be born into slavery,
same
you
in
might
Rome.
be very much Nordic and born into slavery.
Right.
So it's complex, but it's a really, really important thing to bear in mind. There's a huge proportion of the population that's enslaved.